All right, what a wonderful day to do some movement. You guys, it's just about the middle of summer. If you have a percussion tool, let's get it. And you will also need your foam rollers. So obviously I have a bunch of foam rollers, long foam rollers, short foam rollers, and orange foam rollers, right? Grab your percussion tool and we're gonna hit some key areas that we want to hydrate the tissue. And I want you to think about and always remember, this is your anchor. 3 key areas of mobility. 3. If you focus on nothing else, focus on these 3 key areas, and it starts down at your feet. Your feet and ankles need to have freedom. They need to have mobility. And to have those things, you need to have hydration. You need to have a consistent practice of moving tissue and making sure that the movement is accurate and true to what we want the body to do. So first and foremost, ankles. Second, hips. The pelvis can become so tight for many, many reasons. But tight tissue, we'll deal with that kind of as we get through this session this morning. And what causes immobility? So mobility is really makes your life better. If you're an athlete, it makes it way better. Okay, so ankles, hips, the pelvis specifically, the ability of the pelvis, the bones to move well. And then the third key area of mobility is going to be your thoracic spine. And your thoracic spine is every piece of the spine, 12 vertebrae, where all of the ribs attach. That needs to move. First and foremost, if that can expand and contract, if the ribs that attach to the spine can expand and retract in a comfortable, good, healthy way, then we know you're going to breathe better. And if you breathe better, then you're going to perform better, and just overall your life is going to be better because you'll have better oxygen transport. So let's get the percussion tool and get it moving on a low setting, not the lowest setting, but not the highest setting, right in the middle. And we're going to work through the calf muscle and just give it some love. You're not trying to push hard into it. You don't want it to, you want it to have a little bit of stimulation, get the muscle fiber woken up, get the fascia between the skin and the muscle fiber. Fascia is also present between all the muscle fibers. So we just want movement deep in the tissue. So just nice and easy through the lower leg. There's a little muscle right on the lateral aspect, the outside aspect of the lower leg, that anterior tib. So let's go ahead and lightly brush over it. Lightly brush over it. Just imagine if you were the anterior tib right now. You'd be like, oh, that feels so good. That's kind of what we want. We don't want to be pushing on them and saying, you bad anterior tib. No. We want to be like, so good, right? Working along those peroneals, also known as the fibularis muscles, just nice and easy down into a little bit of that soleus posterior tib. And again, we're being very nice to the tissue. Be nice to the tissue. Quote me on that today. Okay, other side. Big gastroc muscles, big lower leg muscles, just nice and easy, working through. We're not being mean, we're not pushing hard. We're taking time. That's sometimes is some of the benefit of Mobility Monday for so many people, is that it's just about setting time aside. Okay, keep going with your percussion tool. If you don't have a percussion tool and you're like, Erin, what the heck, I don't have one of those, you can be rubbing and shaking the muscle using your own hands, right? So there's times when we don't have our percussion tool. So that means you get onto that anterior tip, just give it a little bit of friction. You don't want to use a bunch of massage oil a lot of times when you're doing mobility work. You're just trying to get friction and a little bit of heat. So you can use your own hands if you don't have the percussion tool. It is a good investment. It's good to have one. Okay, next we're going to go up to the quads. How many of you guys got better tan line than me? Probably not many. Because everything I do is like whether I'm cycling or golfing. I'm never getting tan up here for some reason. I guess I need to get back in the outdoor swimming pool. It's coming. All right, just work through that VMO, that medial part of the knee. Nice and easy, same easy intensity. Through that little bit of adductor. You can see it. All through here. Little bit, nice, light, gentle. We can go to that medial hamstring. We can get that guy from the front. Right? Everything on the inside of the thigh. And then everything on the outside of the thigh along that IT band. Much better strategy than foam rolling the IT band. Use the percussion tool or use your hands to move and create a little bit of friction through that tissue to create more blood flow through that area. And from this position, we can get up into the glute. So right through that glute, nice and easy. And again, not pushing hard, just working through the tissue. The whole goal is to get hydration through that tissue. Okay, other side, we'll kind of start down the middle. Big rectus femoris. Remember, rectus femoris is a hip flexor. So what we're doing right here is actually helping open the hips. Think about that. That tight muscle right there. And then we go down into the VMO, into those adductors. Nice and easy. You can get that medial hamstring. Through that lateral part. Working through that IT band. It's much more fun with the gun than with your hands, not gonna lie. And then work through the glute. After this, we'll go right to the foam roller. So if you don't have a massage gun, just wait a second and we'll come back to you. What brand should you buy? The best possible deal you can with the reliability. It doesn't matter. I've been really happy with this little Theragun Mini, a couple $100. I skipped a massage 1 week and put the funds towards one of those. So it was kind of a good move, I think. All right, let's grab that foam roller. And you want to get just below, we're working mobility of the muscles and the mobility of the structure. We're working the thoracic spine here. So we do want to move the spine. We don't want to just roll through a rigid spine, right? So we've got the foam roller right below the shoulder blades. Put the hands behind the head and just extend the spine nice and easy. We're going to go 5 of those. 2, hips are on the ground. 3, 4, and 5. And good. Now we're going to do one more. We're going to move that foam roller up 2 or 3 vertebrae so it's no longer on the same ones we started. We're working extension here too. We want to tuck the chin, keep the chin into the throat, and then just a nice big turn to the outside. That feels nice. Okay, good. All right, from there, we're going to go into a standing position. We're working a little bit of decompression. So for me, decompression of the joints and the structure takes a massive lift. So we're going to get into a split stance. Take a big breath, pull the ribs off the hips with the breath. Make sure you're not in the back seat. So just your nose, if there was a plumb line, should be right in front of your toes. Okay, so 2 inches in front of your toes. This would be at my toes, that's 2 inches in front of my toe. And it gives more responsibility to that lead leg. From right there, we're going to float the hands to the height of the heart, and then we're going to elevate the hands with a nice big breath. Keep the chin into the throat, nice big reach with the hands. And what we're trying to do here, guys, is get as much space between the hips and the fingertips as we possibly can, okay? So start the hands at the height of the heart. Big inhale, elevate, pull the ribs as high towards your fingertips as you can. So the ribs are coming up and then the hip is going away. From there, let's take a few big breaths. Try to expand the rib cage. 2 more big breaths. and good. So gravity and ground are constantly trying to compress us. So we're always looking for length in this hip. We're looking for space between the ribs and the hips. Want to get a little bit into that forward shift so that you don't go into extension with the spine. It's fine that you can, but we're not working that right now. So nose right in front of the toes, float the hands to the height of the heart. Notice the elbows are a little bit low. And from right there, because we're not locking out, right? Drop the shoulder blades, elevate the hands, get nice and skinny. You've got a little bit of forward and a little bit of up. We got 3 big breaths here. Pull the hip away. And good. Do that move throughout the day. This is called a woodpecker stance in foundation training. You know I'm a fan of that. Nose in front of the toes. Pull the ribs off the hips. We're using that to decompress the spine. And you can just play with even just bringing your hands over your head throughout the day, okay? All right, wide stance. From here, we're working a hip toggle. That means the hip is going to push back behind the heels and then come back to the front. All right, so let's work that together. Wide stance, heels outside of toes. Push the hips back. Load those hamstrings. We're seeking hamstring loading when we push the hips back. Feel those hammies. Keep your chest up. Come right back up. Feel those hammies. 2, 3. You don't want to kill them. You just want to feel. 4. That takes a strong spine. And 5. Okay, now we're going to rotate just a little bit. Working that same hip toggle. Hips to the back. We're going to rotate to the right. So the right hip is going to come to the midline. Right shoulder is going with it. And then it stops. So as soon as the hip stops, the shoulder stops. 1. Hip in. 3, 4, and we're going internal rotation into this lead leg. And 5, good. Same thing other side, heels outside of toes. We're going to work internal rotation on the right side, taking the left hip across to the midline. If the hip stops, the shoulder stops. 2, 3, push your hips back. 4, and 5. It's very difficult to get into internal rotation when you are not in a flexed position. Okay, so hip flexion, push the hips back. We're going to go 1 more each side. This time we're going to add a little bit more thoracic spine movement. So we take the right hip across, and then the right hand just reaches right outside of the right knee. And these are measuring sticks within our own bodies. We're going to alternate sides here. We should always be able to get into this position. We don't want to just start moving through the thoracic spine without the hip, right? So the hip goes first. Right side, hip, then arm. Come back. Left side, hip, then arm. Hip, hip. We get in trouble with our lumbar spine, the low back, if we don't turn the hips first. Good. Hip. Good. Hip. Good. So this is where people with low back pain really start to realize that if your hips don't move, what's moving? My lumbar spine is starting to rotate, right? And that's not, it can, but it's definitely not built to do that. If this hip can go here, man, that's good stuff. Hip, reach, hip, and reach. And that shows up in all kinds of places. It definitely shows up in gait. Your belly button goes towards your lead leg when you run, right there. If this can't accommodate that, you start to externally rotate that, that femur. And if you start running with externally rotated femurs, your open hips, you have no gliding in your SI joint. It's a whole cascade of bad stuff. All right, so let's work on that SI joint. We're gonna go down onto all fours, right knee, 3 inches in front of left. 3 inches is about 12 centimeters, okay? Right leg in front of left. Do not overdo this. Hands are nice and even directly under the shoulders. We're just gonna roll back and then forward. Back and forward. Keep your head nice and neutral, chin into throat. And this is very specific to glide the SI joint and move the pelvis. You can't really feel it. You have to just trust me that when the knees are offset, every time you move forward, if you have a mirror, you can see it, but then you start messing with your head position to see yourself in the mirror. It's kind of a catch-22. All right, hip width apart, left knee in front of right, hands are neutral, head is neutral, don't look down, don't be a head hang. You want a nice strong spine. A strong spine is a mobile spine, okay? Ready? Back, and forward, 2. These are the little things, guys, that come up with big, big results. When your pelvis moves better than someone else's through the course of a race or through the course of a day, your whole musculature sits differently and you don't have those patterns of compensation. Just nice and easy. So it's worth doing this kind of stuff. And good. All right, from here, let's stay on all fours, also known as that quadruped position. And from here, we're just going to go quadruped. Knees are now nice and balanced. We're reaching under, and then come back, and then under, and then come back. 3. You might feel a little bit of tugging in the low back, but tugging is different than straining or stressing too much. Little tug right there, I definitely feel it. It's that relationship between the right hip and the left shoulder. It's a very strong relationship. Right there. Right there. We're going to go one more each side. Good. And good. So that combination of the quadruped SI joint gliding from all fours and then into the reaches is a really strong combination. All right, let's bring it back up into a standing position. Feet shoulder width apart. We're just going to do some big upper body circles. So hands behind your head, and all we're doing is going down. Look at the outside of your right knee, and then look at the front of your knees, and then look at the outside of the left knee, and then come all the way back up. So first thing is to kind of turn to the right, look at the outside of the right knee, roll around, left knee, hello, come all the way back up. Let's go 2 more of those. Right knee, see that left shift, all the way around, right shift, come all the way back up. So if you're thinking about the body in terms of fascial lines, this is your lateral line. The lateral line includes that TFL and IT band. It also includes the lat. So when you start to think about looking over here and rotating here, you see that little shift into the left side? That kind of is a good sign of mobility. If you think about it, if I turn here and I've got no shift, it means I have no space in my lateral line. So you have tightness, you might not have stability. This is a whole conversation. Sometimes as practitioners, we get confused with what is tight or what is strong, and we start to talk about tissue. The tissue is tight. Well, it might not be tight, it might be strong, but it might also need freedom, right? I like freedom in the performance strength program. So we're never going to create tightness in the body at the expense of getting stronger. It's not worth it. Okay? Let's go 3 more big upper body circles. We look to the right, we shift left. All the way around. As we get to the left side, we shift right. Come back up. So we're loading that lateral system. Around, hips move, and then we've got freedom through the hips. Freedom. Good. And that's not bad for your brain either, going upside down like that. All right, one more time. Nice wide stance. Get your hands on your knees like you're playing third base, like when we were kids. And all we're going to do is just a nice gentle glide. Just nice, easy, loading those adductors Adductors can get tight. This will tell you how they are doing. Mine feel pretty good. Nice and soft. The big golf tournament this weekend didn't really screw me up. But I will say it was super hot, and it was kind of humid for Colorado. So my biggest focus to take care of my tissue to ensure that I could maintain a good quality golf swing for 2 full days was hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. A lot of electrolytes, and my tissue feels like it recovered really well. I also had a nice bike ride on Saturday morning before the tournament and a nice run on Sunday morning. So hydration will always be the #1 way to keep your tissue super healthy. Okay, one more time, hands on knees, push your hips back, gently loading, noticing where there's any tugging. I've got a little bit of tugging down in the knee, doesn't mean I'm worried about it, but I definitely will deal with that throughout the week and just keep maybe working the massage gun on that a little bit, but also working on my hands-on work through that medial knee for hydration as well as movement in the tissue. So just because you're not moving in space, like you're working mobility, if you just stand here and work the tissue between the hip bone and the skin and the fascia. So hope you have an amazing week. Hopefully we moved just enough for you today. Keep reaching up. Don't forget to decompress, use your breath, pull the ribs off the hips. I hope you have an amazing week, you guys. There's so much fun racing coming up right now. It's summer, and stay hydrated. Peace. I always appreciate when you show up. I'm going to keep showing up. This was episode 151.